Jared Goff is having perhaps his best year of his career, which isn't a Patrick Mahomes level compliment, but it's saying a fair amount because Goff has had at least three other really good years in the pros, so there's something to go against for him. And the stats, they love him. They really do. Some of them are, you could be argued, based on his performance at the team level, but at the end of the day, he's the biggest driving force for the team's success because he is the quarterback after all. So, for expected points added plus completion percentage over expected, he is, guess what? Number one in the entire league. He's the best. He is also crushing it in success rate as he's number two. And if you're unfamiliar with either of those stats, be sure to check out the videos I did on them, as they're super useful. They can define how well an offense, defense, or a quarterback is playing, so they're hyper versatile. In addition to that, Goff is 18th in quarterback rating. I know that sounds really rough, but really, you add it together, and he averages out to be seventh best. That's incredible. He is not getting talked about like he's the seventh best quarterback in the league. I'll tell you what. I would say the average person, if you ask them, the average person that knows football at least a little bit, that is, if you ask the average person, they'd be like, "Who's Jared Goff? I don't know who that is." But if you ask the average person that knows something, I would say they would tell you he's about maybe the 12th best quarterback. And to me, there's a pretty big difference between 7 and 12. So Goff is definitely not being viewed in the light that he probably should be. And I think that's a bit of a shame because he's really had some good years over the years. And this year, he's doing probably his best work. As for other people that are doing their best work, the offensive line, they are 13th in pass blocking when combining PFF's team ranking with ESPN's pass blocking win rate. So I feel like people are a little bit surprised maybe when they hear that they're only 13th because the Lions do get talked about like they have this god tier offensive line, and they actually do. They still do. But their line is a bit stronger in the run game than they are in pass protection. They are not bad in pass protection, though, especially when you take in Penei Sewell at right tackle, who can just cancel out any edge rusher and just erase them from any sort of pressure, be it power, speed, finesse, whatever you want to call it. He's not going to get beat very often. And he is sort of the benchmark for tackles, I would say. They also have Taylor Decker, who was hurt this past week, but I believe should be back for this game upcoming. I think he's listed as questionable, which usually means that you're going to play. So it's hopefully nothing significant with him because Decker is also very good. He's nowhere near Penei Sewell, but who is? You got like Trent Williams, Teron Armstead. That's about it. And now for the weapons, you have the best one being Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God. Such a cool name. Absolutely divine. He is 18th in yards per game and 84th in yards per reception. You would like it if he could win deep downfield a little bit more, but he stretches the field laterally very nicely, and he adds a certain physicality as well. He's a good mix, I would say, of both finesse and physicality because he's very refined in his route running, which I think is a little bit more finesse, but he's also going to maybe give you a stiff arm or just kind of plow through and gain some extra yards that way. He's very tough to take down also, but I would say this might get me in some trouble, but I would say Jamison Williams, the stats reflect this by the way though. Jamison Williams, I would say he's their wide receiver 1 this year. He's 20th in yards per game and 2nd in yards per reception. That's awesome stuff. Those are true bona fide wide receiver 1 numbers. And I don't think anybody's talking about him like that. The closest they are is with fantasy, maybe, where you may see people picking him up and being like, that Jamison Williams? You might be surprised by it. But he is absolutely crushing it this year. And I think that he just adds such a valuable element to the team that can't be replaced very easily. He has elite speed, and I mean top 5 in the NFL speed, and it's effortless speed as well. He just looks like he's gliding out there. He is so freaking good, and I love that because I was high on him for a while. I was getting very nervous though, I'll admit, because he was not panning out. So I was kind of getting antsy, but I stuck with him a bit and he's proving me right and proving me more right than I would have ever imagined because I thought he was going to be a good deep threat and that would be about it. No, he is elite. Top, I don't know, 15 wide receiver this year. Speaking of being elite, Sam Laporta was elite last season. He is not this year, though. He's 77th in yards per game and 31st in yards per reception, which is a bit surprising. A tight end should have those stats be reversed in general. But Laporta, he can really get deep downfield and he can extend plays with the best of them. He's almost, this is funny because they both went to Iowa, come to think of it. He's almost George Kittle level of run after catch tight end, where he just refuses to go down. And I'm guessing some of you have seen the play from when Laporta was at Iowa, where he just ran through about 27 tackles. That's Laporta, man. He is super physical. That's the thing with these Lions. Jamison Williams, he's not physical really. He's more finesse. And Jahmyr Gibbs, same thing. Gibbs has some strength to him, but for the most part, they're finesse players. But everybody else, they are so physical. I would hate to go against this team. Someone that is not really contributing so far, though, is Tim Patrick, who I would love to see get back and play well. He has missed a ton of time due to injuries. I don't remember exactly what injuries they are, but they've piled up throughout his career. Right now, he's 115th in yards per game and 30th in yards per reception, but it's on a very, very small sample size, so you can basically throw it out. It shows, though, that he does have maybe something left in the tank. It's obviously not enough to feel confident in, but it's better than nothing. I'll say that much. Shifting now to their run game, this is where things really get juicy. They can pass with the best of them, don't get me wrong, but they can also run with the best of them. That's why this offense is so good. As I mentioned before, they have a star-studded offensive line that can just move you out of the way with ease. You got Penei Sewell again doing that. Frank Ragnow. Oh my gosh, Ragnow is so good. He is capable of playing any sort of scheme. He can play gap, he can play zone. If that's foreign to you, it just basically means he's both strong and fast. He is just also super technically sound, which is needed for both aspects, of course. But he is maybe the best center in football. There's a couple good centers. Even though it's not a position that is super highly regarded, there are definitely some good centers in the league. But Ragnow might be my pick for the best one. With that said, they also have two very, very good running backs. I mentioned before Jahmyr Gibbs. He is so good as a running back because he has some of the best speed in all of the NFL. I almost said all of the football. But in addition to that, he is very crafty. He knows how to set up angles and use his speed as best he can. He's also got jukes for days. Somebody who's very different, though, and this plays so nicely off of it, is David Montgomery, who is just as physical as can be. Big surprise there, I know. The Lions having a physical player? What? David Montgomery, he is a man amongst boys a lot of the time. It's hilarious to see him run. He just plows right through. It doesn't matter what or who, he's going to get through and pick up some extra yards. Shifting now to their defense, they are statistically elite as they are second in defensive expected points added and seventh in defensive success rate. So, top 7 in both stats. If you got distracted and didn't realize, yes, they are in fact top 7 in both stats. That is incredible because they lost arguably the best player on their entire team, Aiden Hutchinson, who was looking like probably the best edge rusher in football. Again, like was center, but even way more. Edge rusher is a position that's just littered with super talented players. So it's hard to say, anybody's the best. You could say Myles Garrett is the best, and I wouldn't feel confident in that. You could say TJ Watt is. I'd feel maybe a little bit more confident about that, but it's hard to say. There's so much talent at the edge position. I wouldn't say that, by the way, real quick, about Watt this year. He's not having that good of a year. But Hutchinson, he was having a year for the ages. And unfortunately, he went down to injury, which sucks. But the team is still keeping on. You have Kirby Joseph, who is let me just start by prefacing. You have 9 above average defensive starting caliber players on the team, in my opinion. And for the biggest portion of it, it is all to deal with, not all to do with, it's mostly to do with their safety duo. They have Kirby Joseph, who is elite in coverage. He's also a stud run defender, and he's 6'1". Tell me what he's missing, because he's not missing anything. Speaking of not missing anything, I guess this player's actually missing one thing, but it's not that significant. Brian Branch, though, he's a star in coverage. He's elite against the run. He's also 6 foot tall. His flaw is that he ran a 4.58 40-yard dash, which is, I guess you could say, slow. It's not slow, but it's right there at the tier of being slow. So that is one knock on him, but you don't notice that in game, even against very fast players, because he's so aware and he knows how to position himself. I think he also uses his height to his advantage, where he can make better breaks on balls as a result of that. This is the best safety duo in the league. I would say Green Bay, funnily enough, if that's even a word, has the second best. So it's in the NFC North in both cases. But the Lions, I think they have far and away the best safety duo in the league. They also have one of the best defensive tackle duos in the league, though. Actually, you could say trios, come to think of it. Aleem McNeil, he's a stud pressure getter, and he's solid against the run. I think that's the modern ideal. If you can be both of those things, you can just be you can be anything. You want to focus on the pass, but you can't not stop the run. If you can't stop the run, you're going to get gashed. And another person that stops the run, though, is DJ Reader, who's a good run defender. He's solid against the pass, too, though. Reader, I think, is right on the cusp of being the best run defender in the league, but he's not quite at that level. I meant he's in that tier of best run defender in the league. I would say he's maybe the second tier, but maybe he's at the bottom of the first tier. Either way, he's very, very good. Don't let the verbiage confuse you. For the third defensive tackle, Levi Unzurike, he's solid against the run. He's good against the pass too. He's a good pressure getter. That's incredible to have three guys like that are quality in both facets of the game. Speaking of being quality in both facets, we have Zadarius Smith. I would say exactly that. He's quality as a pressure getter. He's also all right as a run defender. I wouldn't say that he's particularly good at it, but he's not bad. He is a big body, so he's tough to move out of the way. I don't want to put this on him because I don't know this to be true, but I feel like he just doesn't put in 100% effort against the run because he is so large. I'd say he's about 270. Maybe he's a little bit smaller, but he's about that big, and he's very strong as well. If you have a high motor in addition to that, and you're technically sound, which I think he's technically sound, you'll be one of the best run defenders in the league. But he's just all right. Moving now to the defensive backs again, we have Carlton Davis, the third, not the second, not the fourth, the third. He is quality in coverage. He's solid as a run defender, and he's 6'1". He, like Branch, is on the verge of being slow because he ran the 40 in 4.53 seconds. But he, again, is too good of a player for that to matter. It's not to say that speed doesn't matter, but for these two guys at least, they are too talented for it to derail anything they do, really. Also, if it wasn't clear, cornerbacks running a 4.53 is, I would say, maybe a little bit slower than a safety running a 4.58. They are just different positions. Corners are expected to be a little bit faster. So they both have a little bit of an issue in that regard, but they don't get beat by speed. Malcolm Rodriguez now, he is one of their really quality linebackers. As a run defender, I would say he gets a question mark. I don't really know how good he is in that regard. I don't recall hearing about him much in the pre-draft process because I only follow a select few amount of players. I say a select few, it's about 100 players. Maybe between 50 and 100. I know that's a very big range, but it depends year to year. Rodriguez, though, he lacks a bit as a pressure getter, which doesn't matter the most for a linebacker. It does because Aaron Glenn likes to blitz, but it's not the biggest deal. The real good thing, though, with Rodriguez is that he's a solid coverage linebacker, and that is just so important nowadays. Jack Campbell, he is a very complete linebacker, which is surprising because he sucked last year, which is, I guess, not the most surprising. Most linebackers are not good year one, but he was rough. And now Campbell, he's good against the run. He's mid against, or mid blitzing, but again, that's not the biggest thing. Then he's a quality cover guy. You add those two together, you have a really good duo for years to come. Alex Anzalone, when he gets back from injury, he can be a third good linebacker. I think they might go with Rodriguez and Campbell, to be completely honest, as their two guys. So Anzalone might be the odd man out due to injury, which would suck, but it's good to have three good linebackers as well, even if it's not the most important position. Things are not all sunshine and rainbows, though, for the Lions. They have three below average defenders, one of which being Kindle Vildor, who is really rough. Per PFF, he was 116th out of 127 corners last year. That is not going to cut it. That is probably worse than replacement level production, which is really saying a lot because if you have followed football analytics any, you'll hear that sometimes be thrown around where it's a replacement level player. That's kind of something that stems from baseball with WAR, wins above replacement. But yeah, I think that's worse than just somebody you can find on the street. Somebody that's not quite that bad, but is not great either, is Amik Robertson. He's poor as a blitzer. He's just not really effective in that regard, which is sort of something that matters because they blitz a lot again. And as a nickel, you're tasked with lots of jobs. What sucks, though, is that he's bad in coverage. I would say as a run defender, he also gets a question mark, like Rodriguez. I just haven't really seen him defend the run, but Robertson, he is just not particularly good at nickel. And then for their third player, Josh Pascal, he's all right as a run defender, but he's rather poor as a pressure getter. That just is not great. It's nice that he supplies something, but the more important aspect is the pressure, and he's not doing a good job at that. Overall, though, the Lions quietly have a very good defense. I don't know how quiet it is because they are regarded by a lot of people as being the best team in the league now, but their defense is very good. It would be a lot better if Aiden Hutchinson was healthy, but I still think they can cut the cheese and be good enough or more than good enough on defense, which is terrifying because they have such a good offense. Those are my thoughts on the Lions. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.